Today we are introducing you into web application development. We are going to talk mostly on the concept that you need to understand before you learn web development, right? Yeah. Today we are going to see how the internet works, how web applications are put together, what you need to understand, what are programming languages, what is the internet, and all those concepts. And those concepts are very crucial because if you don't grasp them well, it's going to be very difficult for you to actually follow this series of tutorials. So this part is very essential. It's very essential and crucial at if you can say it so. So make sure you share it with your network, because remember, we are a community and we have a mission. So our target for this year 2020 is to have at least 100,000 subscribers, right? Yeah, it is. So make sure you like the video, and if you have not yet subscribed to this channel, you do it before we start, right? Okay, let's start our session now. Great, here we go. I am Duplex Kamju, founder of Bipro1, which is one of the leading blogging platform. Very easy to start, and you can start blogging on bipro.com. Introduction into web development. This is just the fundamental, and you need to know that before you start learning web development. Let's start by what's a computer. As we used to say it, we know all that a computer is just an electronic device, but that can perform some kind of operation, right? Yeah, like arithmetic operation, some calculation, logical operation based on certain condition, and even graphical operation, and so many other stuffs. We usually say that a computer is just an electronic device, of course, but that take some input, then process those inputs and give out some output, right? So that's basically a computer. If you look at it in a more internal way or structural way, this is the central part that is actually processing those input from our left that can be passed through keyboard or mouses and so on, right? And then the CPU is that heart of the computer that actually work like the brain, and it keeps sending data, extending data between the memory, so that application actually processing what you are request, and then it send back to the output from this peripherals that you can see on our right, like the monitor. If it is something that it is sound, then it's going to use the speaker to give you the output and so on, right? Great. So basically those are the main component of a computer, and a computer today do basically that, and that's why you see all these devices fall into the category of a computer. Yeah, even smartphones today, they are considered as computer, and that's why a lot of people use them and perform a lot of operation and so on. Great. Yeah, I know you know this, so I just wanted to reiterate the obvious thing. Now let's talk about computer science. It's true that many people get confused at times when we talk of computer science, but basically it's just the science that study the processes that's needed to manipulate the data or information in an efficient way to solve a problem in a more digital manner, right? Yeah, most of the time when we talk of computer science, we are talking of all of this. You need to know some algorithm, you need to know data structure, computer architecture, networking, even theory of compilation and so on. So computer science is just the science, it's that science that allow you to actually understand how a computer works and how you can efficiently program a computer, or you can write complex software to solve some scientific problem, not a really scientific problem, but like using computer to solve real life problem, but by modeling them in a scientific way, if you can say it like that. So a computer science guy is more general. He knows most of those concepts of computer, and he is able to now put them together to solve a particular problem. Okay, we are going toward our direction now. What is computer programming? Web development, it's just like programming, but that is more specialized into web application, right? So a computer programming is all about written a set of instructions the computer will execute. Yeah, most of the time when we are written a program, we are just putting down a set of instruction we want the computer to follow. And since the computer is very obedient, he is always going to follow our instruction and does what we want him to do. Computer programming, it's all about programming languages, and today there are about 500 of them out there, and we need to make the right choice. But what's going to happen is that we are now have to categorize them. We need to know how they are categorized, because today we talk of low-level programming languages that are the most powerful programming languages. They are very close to the computer language, to machine language, and at times they are difficult to write because they are basically binary code, or if you can say not very close to low-level language, we can talk of assembling too. They are basically 0 and 1s, and to actually solve a problem by written a long string of 0 and 1, it's not human understandable, right? In fact, it's understandable but not easy at all. That's why there are some other category called high-level programming languages, and those one are very close to English as we used to know. And what's happened is that we used to compile them, that means translate them into from the programming language we wrote, which is very close to English, into machine language, which is 0 and 1s, but they are relatively easy to program with, and it's more understandable by us human, and that's what most of the time we learn when we said we want to learn programming. And if you want to categorize them in terms of problem domain, they are web programming languages, they are mobile programming languages, they are desktop programming languages, and they are embedded programming languages. So web programming language directly deal with web application. We use them to write web application. So that is the part we are going to focus on in this series. There are also other ones for mobile development, and that's what we use to develop mobile application, like your Android application, your iOS application. Like you launch your iPhone, you touch on maybe Facebook, WhatsApp, and so on, right? Those are written using mobile programming languages like Android, like C#, like Swift for iOS, and so on. And there are programming language for desktop that a lot of time have been we were very used to desktop application. It's true that the web is actually taking the shape and everything is toward web direction, so that we benefit from the cloud services and so on. But desktop programming languages can be in Java, C++, C#, and so on. But today the technology is also revolutionary with the embedded system, and we are talking of self-driving cars today. A lot of people are getting into that field, and they are doing some great job. Here we usually use some programming languages that can be embedded. Even C++, we can write program and embed it into an electronic circuit, and then put it into a device like a car. Yeah, Now, talking of web, as we said, we are going to be more focused on just web programming languages. The web in general is divided into two parts: this front end and the back end. The front end is the part that is mostly dealing with everything you see, we as the client, as we used to say, the person in front of a computer or touching the screen of a mobile phone, it's a client. And then when you are interacting with any application at that level, that means in front of a computer or in front of a screen of the phone or whatever, touching the button to log in, fill an input, like something, those are at the front end level. And most of the time when we talk of front-end web development, we are talking of all the concepts you need to know to be able to work on that part as far as web application is concerned. So it's like you can see on this illustration, all this interaction, this blueprint that you are seeing. When you touch it, you are interacting with the application at this client level, and it's very important to know the languages we are going to learn to be able to work on that part. Essentially, we need the very fundamental languages of the web, which is HTML5. Here we will be working HTML5, CSS3, and JavaScript. Those are the fundamental. And then there are many other languages that are derived from that, like this TypeScript, which is this one. It's a set of it's a superset of JavaScript code that is there to ease the way you write JavaScript code and make sure you can write up OOP, what we used to call object-oriented program using JavaScript, because you know it's not possible to solve a complex problem. It's possible, but it's more easy to approach a complex problem in an OOP way, in an object-oriented way, and it make it easy to solve a problem that way. That's why we will learn TypeScript when we will cover the first part, which is the normal JavaScript, and there's this part called Sass, which is just a kind of dynamic CSS code, which allow you to write your CSS in the sense that you will not repeat yourself too much. You can create variable, function, and even have some conditional statement, right? Which is very crazy, something that was not possible before. So Sass and Less are doing that quite well today, and we will have some note on Sass and so on. And when you know the fundamentals, these first languages, you now need to know in fact, to write now a program, you need to know a framework, because at time while working on a program, there are a lot of concepts that keep repeating. We need to now follow some best practices and make sure the code we are written are secure, they are clean, and they are working together in the right manner, right? So we will be learning a framework, and all of these frameworks are just client-side frameworks. We'll starting with Angular, then we'll have an introduction into React. Angular, let mention that Angular is backed by Google, and it was created in 2009 by Misko Erverit, and those are two Google engineers, and later on it was doing the work in the industry. React guys from Facebook, this one was created too, and this guy from the Laravel community created this Vue.js, which is a kind of combination of Angular and React. And this famous Bootstrap, which is used for, it's a kind of UI boost framework, very powerful. We also have Foundation, and we have these two tools that are not really client-based frameworks. They are just build tools. We call them build tools because it allows us to automate tasks at the front end level, and even, yeah, mostly at the front end level. We have this grunt. It's a task runner, and it allows us to like minify our css code, concatenate some everything into one file to avoid multiple requests and so on. We also have webpack, right? We will be talking about all of those, and we'll see how all of these tools work together to make you a perfect front-end developer first. Then we will go into the backend part, and you learn more on how the code work at the backend level. That means on the server side. You know, today when you click on the you likes a post on Facebook, your friend in the US actually reflects it. Why you like it in your computer, right? It reflects the same like, because what's happening is that everyone is getting its source from a server. So the code of Facebook itself is reside into a server, which is it may be in a certain data center, as we used to say today, but basically a server is just a kind of very robust computer, or very powerful computer that can serve many multiple million of user at the same time, and those users are those clients we have been talking about. So those codes are based in those server, and the server know how to process requests that have been sent from the client, and this is how the backend part work. So the code come, and your program, your web program that is hosted, your web program that's hosted at that server will take your request and process it. If you need to save some data, it will then save it into your database. If you need to get it, you get it from this database, and then send it back, process and put down the response, and send it back to you at the client level. And if you want to, you are curious to like, what does a data how does a server look like? Today we are not talking anymore of servers, because this problem of cost and difficulty of maintaining a server has raised this problem of cloud computing, and people, this vendor, this big giant, have started a certain concept called cloud, and today we are talking of data center. This is an example of how a data center look like, right? And you are, as you are seeing, these are just many servers that are put together, and they are now just selling those servers as services, platform infrastructure as services. You use them to host your application without wondering if there's always constant internet, if there's always constant power like electricity, and if your server where your application was hosted got bad, what will happen, and so on, right? The cloud has actually revolutionized the industry of those application hosting, and it's very good. Those are concepts you should understand how they work, but I think I will definitely talk about that. Even though I'm not an expert, I'm not a specialist into cloud computing, but I know at least some concept as far as cloud computing is concerned. And talking of programming languages we will be using at the backend level, we will learn PHP, which is the core language. We will also learn Node, and we will also learn MySQL for database, and MongoDB. So the two programming languages we will be learning is PHP and Node, and then MySQL and MongoDB for database, and make sure all of these are working together. Now that's not the way we write code. As we said, when we want to solve a complex problem, we definitely need to know some frameworks around it. So when we will be knowing some PHP, we will now be using this framework which is very popular today. It's called Laravel, and Laravel is evolving they are doing very great in the industry. Yeah, this being said, we will be doing two programming languages for the backend. right? We will be doing PHP with Laravel framework, and we will be doing Node with Express. But we will also introduce you into this very nice framework for Node. It's called Adonis. They follow the MVC pattern, and that's why I like it. Don't bother about the keyword pattern. It's just the concept that's used into programming at time to define a set of methodology that have been approved, right? And then for this MongoDB, we'll be using Mongoose, and MySQL will still be MySQL depending on how we use it. For example, in Laravel, we'll be using query builders and Eloquent. But apart of that, you need to now, if you work on the backend, you'll be now able to call yourself a full stack developer, right? And for that, a full stack developer needs to know version control. That's why we will be learning Git and GitHub. Don't bother, I think it will be one of our very next tutorial, Git and GitHub, because it's very essential for a web developer or for a core professional developer today to master those version control. I will be making sure that by next video we work on that, and that's very important. Great, you understand what it means to be a full stack developer, front end plus back end. That's great. Now let's talk about the internet and how a web application works there. Great, let's start by what is the internet. Usually we said the internet is just the set of network interconnected between themselves. Now, if you are you have a Wi-Fi, right? Or let's say you have a small hotspot that is linking all the computer into your company. That is already a network. Now, when many computers are interconnected among themselves like that, it forms what we call a network. And the World Wide Web, which is the real internet we know, is just made up of those sub network. It could be a network that's linking all a city, linked to another network from another city, and so on till it cover all the world. Basically, that's what the internet is. So when you are your browser, your client from this computer send a request, like requesting something to a web page, the request is sent to the internet, and the request will be looking at server side of that client that is handle those requests, that can handle the request the user sent. So you will find it through the internet, because every request is sent through with some protocol that know what's the destination, and so on. So it's going to send it into, and through the internet is set for the server. When it reach the server take the request and processing it, then prepare the response and send it back through the internet, and then it's going to start now looking at the real client that actually sent the request till it reach you again. That's basically how the web application work. And a web application is just those static pages, and when you enter, for example, bpro.com, it's actually a request you are sending. It's going to prepare the home page on bpro and then send it back to you, and you see after loading on your browser, you see the page render, and that's basically what's happened. Most of the web applications are based on those concepts. It's true that web development for the beginning doesn't require much. You just need a browser, and fortunately all computers come with the browser. At times you having Internet Explorer for Windows, Safari for Macs, and today we are using this popular browser called Google Chrome, and which is very fast. It's even the fastest, as people used to say. So we will be using Google Chrome, and as text editor we will be using either Sublime Text Editor or VS Code for Visual Studio Code, which is from Microsoft. Text editor of your choice, it depends on you. Feel free, use even an IDE and whatever you want. Now when we will be reaching the server side, we will need a server. What does a server mean? As I told you, the server is not just the computer. It's also comprised of some application that we call servers application. So we will need either Apache, which is one of the well-known server, or NGX, but it's not yet time. We will talk about it when we will be starting the backend level. Now it's we need Git, which is also Git and GitHub. For that to run on for us to learn and start using Git, we must install the software itself, which is called Git, and the cloud version is GitHub. We need those two stuff. So next class we are introducing you into Git and maybe the setup. Yeah, next class we are doing the setup and with the introduction into Git and version control. So definitely there may be many things that I didn't cover or mention here, but don't bother, we will keep improving. If I'm making some mistake, if I forgot to mention something, please feel free to ask me that in the comment section, and make sure you share this video. As we said, it's very important to me. Share it and subscribe if it's not yet the case. Like it. Thank you. And you need to know this before you start learning this series. It's very crucial, right? Great. Thank you for watching. Next session on Git and setup.